Hello, everybody. Good to be back. This is lesson number 4. My name is Jens Kruger, in case you have never watched one of these master classes. And I'm going to talk today about single string techniques on the banjo and triplets of the right hand, and, specifically. So let me start off with the single string. This is a masterclass, so I'm assuming you have played banjo for a while. If you are just a beginner, don't worry about it. Maybe you can hear something that you that you might like. Um, uh, uh, Single string, is the meaning. Actually, I'm just saying that, for the ones who don't really know what that means, is that you play more than one note on one string. You know, Usually in banjo, you have these rolls, or you have scales that where you, for every note, you use a different string. But for single string, you would call it, if you play the same scale like this. So that would be like this, in different ways. You can play this scale, and you play more than one note on a string. Now there have been people who've been very famous in developing this style, and foremost this was of course Don Reno in the 50s, who developed a style, playing tenor banjo kind of things, and he would incorporate a lot of like guitar styles, and the single string technique that we're using on the banjo is pretty much also a style that, for instance, Chet Atkins would have used, to play fingerstyle single string melody lines. So he would alternate between the thumb and the index, on a string. The first lick that we probably, as traditional banjo players, learn in a single string manner would be in Pike County Breakdown of Earl Scruggs, where we have. So that's like a single string. Yeah, things like that. And then of course Don Reno standards like Follow the Leader. Yeah, these patterns. And so I'm going to talk about the different approaches, how to start to incorporate, or better maybe incorporate, single string techniques into your playing. There's two approaches, basically, I would say. One is really, I would say, almost a German approach, even though I'm German descent. That's a very strict, way of looking at music. It is in a sense, a non-traditional bound style of learning a technique on an instrument. That means you're going to be just open for everything. It doesn't matter what it is. You just learn scales and not particularly tunes with that or anything. You just really learn the fingerboard. And that's a good approach. That's one approach I'm going to talk about. And the other one is a more phrase approach, that actually is born out of phrases, out of positions. We have these 3 basic positions, and how can we incorporate single string licks and things out of these positions? And I think the combination of both actually are really what we're striving for, because we need sentences and we need just basic technique. So when we start with single string, we could start with just playing a scale, but we look at the third string, and if you just play that up and down, playing, and I'm not really encouraging you to use more than one finger on the left hand, just so you get a feel of how this thing moves, Of course, you might think, well, I'm not going to get really fast with that. Well, Django Reinhardt just used 2 fingers and he got really, really, really fast. I'm going to show you different things here. But if you would take, 3 fingers, then you would shift the position here like that. You use 3 fingers, and then the next, like that. Now, this shifting of positions, when I'm moving down, for instance, I go here, and then I have the index finger here. Now I move really fast with my pinky here. You see, this can be done faster than you might think, and it's actually also easier than you might think. So even though I'm going to show you now a different system of playing this fastness of shifting like this is good to have in your vocabulary of your right hand, really. Because you will always get in the situation where you need to shift that fast. So for instance, or some passages I'm going to talk later. So that is one thing. So if you just stay on one string, for instance, playing the G scale here, you can do all kinds of things. Or and all I do is go back and forth with the thumb and the index finger. We're going to talk about the middle finger a little bit later. But I think I always found it to be very important to be able to play on one string up and down. It doesn't matter if it's the first or the third string, because these fast shifts, they just will sometimes appear, and then you better be prepared for them. So there's another approach that has been around a long time where you play the first note with the index finger, and then you always play 3 notes per string on a scale, and you play the last always with the pinky. So you're always between these 2, and then you just use whichever one of these 2 comes in more handy. So that would be like that. Of course, when you then play the, you can practice that a little bit. And just play around with it and just stay in that one position. Even though this is a very basic first position, to play on a G scale. Of course, when you move it up, of course, you have an A scale, they do it like that. So, or you can go and run through the where you run through the modes, basically, and then you play the G scale, but you start with the G scale on A, right? So it would be then A Dorian. But we don't gonna go into the music theory that far. But you just play the same G notes, same G scale notes with the same concept of the left hand, where you play 3 notes per string, starting with the index, stop, and end with the pinky. So this would be a G scale starting on A here, but using the same concept. And then here. And so forth, right? But this will not this will not be easy to incorporate while you play a fiddle tune or something. It will take some time to actually get this in so internalized that you can really start using this. And I will try to help you a little bit with these ways how to establish that so you can actually start using these kind of ideas. First of all, yeah, where was I? I wanted to help with the establishment of these, and then of course back. And when you come back, that's what I wanted to say. When you come back, you always remember. Then if you change the string, you start with the pinky. See? So here, pinky, pinky, pinky. Yeah? And then up, you always know that the next string will going to be an index. So that makes it kind of logical. But even though like this is the first position, I don't use it as the main. For me, I have main things that I use, like the one right before. Here, starting on the F sharp, but I can also start here. So now, just to play these scales will take a long time until you have it in your head, unless, again, you sing along with the scale. You see, when you sing along with a scale, your mind starts to remember where these notes are in relation to the other notes of the scale. You start, da da is right, da 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 da. So you start to get a relation because you're singing it. And what we want always is to get our musical mind to control the instrument, not what we have practiced. I hope that makes sense. If I just follow, I know, let's say I'm here, and then I can do the scale. Well, that's a good knowledge, and I will just rely on the visual aspects of where these notes are, and then I try to play them in time and hope it will be good music. But maybe it's much better music, at one point when you are playing something and then you really hear a melody you hear something, and that also maybe has a phrasing to it or says something that you actually want to hear, not just because it's possible. Because it's very easy when you learn a lot of scales, the single string technique, that you start to sound a little bit like I'm sorry, you have to be, it starts to sound a little bit like an out of control, pinball machine, it's just notes, but they don't actually, you can tell they're not really connected to a musical idea. They are just a musical opportunity, and they're taken as such, and then they are delivered as such, and then they sound a little hollow and empty maybe, and and for some people maybe it sounds good, but in general it is what you hear inside that we want to get out, and not just that all of a sudden you start playing just because you start doing that, and then it takes over your music, it takes over of your imagination, because the imagination is like a little plant. It's not very strong yet, and if you put a lot of technique on it and a lot of things, you start playing these things instead of the things that you want to hear, because this little plant is not growing. So when you play these scales, singing along is a very good idea, because then you never disconnect it to your musical mind. Okay, that was a long explanation for that. Okay, so you see that there's a system in how to play these scales, and that you can use the first and the third. And I'm not the first to say that. Bela Fleck actually made a great video for Homespun many years ago, where he talked about this technique. And there's countless people, you know, on YouTube who can show you this idea, but so I want to stop right here with the scale idea. I want to move on to the positions, you know, because in positions I find a lot of little ideas. For instance, there was a great banjo player, still is around, and I always admired him, you know, for his sheer energy and his. He just there was a urge to play the banjo, and you heard him play, and you really wanted to listen to him because there was a, like I said, there was an urge, there was a power to it, and there was Eddie Adcock. And Eddie Adcock, you know, he played a lot of single string, and he invented a lot of little things. And one of the first licks I ever learned, you know, I was a kid, was this one. I thought that was the coolest lick. So I have a G for C and then D. But that started to really open up doors for me. You have to see, in single string, there's one problem, you know, that we're facing, one technical problem. I show that to you. When you're on the first string with the thumb, for instance, you know, and you need to go down, that means you need the index finger to move, you know, to the second string. And then you have the thumb maybe on a third, and then you have to go down. That's actually that part where most people get stuck, you know. So if you want to practice a little bit, you know, single string, getting it smooth, is to get the index finger and cross over to the lower string. Like that. And do that for a while. And that helps you get, you know, move along like that. See, when I have this lick, this is exactly what happens. I start off, and now, and then here with the thumb, and then I have to go to the second string with the index. So back to the position. when we have a position like the F position, we can easily build this G scale out of this position by starting with the little finger on the fifth on the G, and then play the A here, and then B here, C here. I say, and then I play the D here, and then I just play two notes on this second string, and then move with the index finger here. So I left the law of the three notes per string, but it comes in very handy. And then sometimes, so I do this again. But it seems like a nice close position. And now I maybe try to develop a little lick. It's like beginning of Black Mountain Rag. And then see, that's just nice. So I have a roll. So if you have a little lick like that, similar like, so but, and then you can maybe develop a longer lick like that. Like that. Yeah. So, or you have, so if I know, you know, in music, in bluegrass music, or let me back up just a little second here. You know, if you take that German scale, solution or approach, where you just learn the scales, it might take you a long time to start incorporating, single string techniques in your playing. But if you have little licks, that makes it a whole lot easier. And once you know quite a few licks, you start to while you do the practice with the scales, don't discharge that, do that. But then all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, this is how they're connected, and you can start to connect these things, these positions, with little scale elements that you can throw in. But I think these little sentences make music just more understandable than just playing scales, just a pattern. Well, it's fine, but if you have a little sentence that says something like, something that you thought, well, is a cool sentence, or like this. That's a cool sentence. And you saw that I'm starting to use more notes than just the scale notes. And that's because I can now connect these scale notes that I have with little chromatics. Right? I can do little chromatic things when I'm on this level here, and I want to incorporate this note as well. Well, I'm going to have to abandon the 3-note system already. So this is really good just to play scales and get this under your belt. But then in the practical world, I like these little sentences because that's where you can incorporate them in regular playing. This was the F position. Now let's move up to the D position, G here, and so it's basically a C chord. That's like a bar here, but it's a C chord. So anything that you can play in C. Can play up here. So what I use here is for my close position would be like A, B here, C, D, E, and then I would move straight. I just play 2 notes, move straight up to the second note, F sharp, G, and then A again, or A here and B here. Okay. Or then sometimes use the A here. So these 2 are optional. Whatever is more, if I play this position, whatever A suits better to play, I play this A or this A. But you see how close this position is. It's not, that's what's called overstretch, in classical guitar, because you try to be like, play positions so you don't have to do that. Because every time you have to go far apart, you can see that that I have to change also this is a close position with the thumb in the back. As soon as I have to stretch the fingers apart, my thumb has to move down. So I'm not only stretching the fingers apart, I also stretch my thumb down, because I'm not going to play everything like that. So as soon as it goes apart, you can see that you play it closer together, where the thumb is just on a regular, where you hold it like that. But then as soon as you go apart, your thumb has to move down a little bit. So you have to move your entire hand, which slows you down sometimes a little bit. It can, not necessarily, but it can. So let's go back to this D position here. So. And I can incorporate these beautiful chromatic little things, like from G, and I go A, and then B flat, and then B flat. Yeah. Or I show you a beautiful little sentence that I learned from a fiddler. See? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Oh gosh, I just lost it. Yeah. Like that. And so if you start creating these little licks or have a few of these little licks, you start to really work with your index and thumb. J.D. Crowe, for instance, Uwe, just for our last live show, he had a song that he sang. What was it? Somebody who lost his friend. What was the name? I can't remember. But it was a beautiful, beautiful song that J.D. Crowe used to do, and I listened to a live version that he did, and he played single string like these licks all the time. He does it. There's all these things, that he's done, in one position. So there's nothing wrong in actually playing out of positions. If you look at players like B.B. King, they would probably only play positions, all their life, playing in one position. Or 2 or 3 positions, little sequences where they know their way around. The thing is, how are you going to connect them? So if you have, so I'm here, so I know I want to go down here, so I maybe use this technique of the 3 notes. So I know I get down there. Sorry, I have to sing along, otherwise I'm not knowing what I'm going to play. So and here's the bar position. So in the bar position, I like to anchor my index here. And then I use the F sharp here. I rarely ever use the F sharp here. I use the F sharp here on the 11th. Yeah. So I use this, you see, but it's all around the bar position. So. And sometimes I use the D again here. Sometimes I use the D here or the D here. These are all practical things. And actually, maybe you wonder, yeah, this is just the way Jens does it. But it's interesting. I've seen so many banjo players in my life, and I've been doing this so long that I see there's a similarity in how we move about with these positions and how we look at them. And I think that's a fascinating approach, because this approach uses this approach uses tradition, because you're making licks, you're making little sentences, and you are incorporating them into functional little pieces of music that work with a tradition you already live in. So I think that's a beautiful thing. For instance, you can, if you're here in this position, one of my a very favorite one of is mine is this goes, and then I add a note. So if I have this here in G, I can play it, a fret lower, 2 frets lower, and I do it in F, but I use still G note. Or I start with this. Yeah, or with the 7. Yeah. So these little sentences, if you get up in the morning and you just come up with one little thing that you like, it's another Lego piece in your vocabulary. And you come up with them by actually playing da ba da be da ga dum, something that you hear. There's a danger in playing a musical instrument sometimes. It is that you, again, play what you have learned, what is possible, and just neglect the things that you actually would like to hear. I know it sounds, I will say that all the time, but I found it to be so much more important to play what you really want to hear than just play what is possible. Because if you, like, I want to just repeat that one more time, if you just play what is possible, you're ending up playing a million notes, but they all don't mean anything to you or the listener most of the time. They just become a lot of notes. And that's what they are, just buckets full of notes, that sort of randomly go everywhere. And you can surprise people. There's these moments where you can do that, where you can, throw things in there that should be a little bit, wake-up call. If everything is just always smooth and nice, you can then maybe do some little, extra notes and things, so people wake up. And you can do that, like you do the same lick and you just do it a half step higher. If you don't stay too long there, you can go back and it still sounds okay. But maybe it's not necessary. And I see a lot of players, including myself, sometimes doing very things that are really not necessary. And I always look at it and I go like, gosh, I let myself astray again with things I could do instead of things that I listened to. And a lot of times, when you have improvisations over fiddle tunes, I wonder, when I hear some improvisations, I say, well, yeah, really was it necessary to destroy a perfectly fine melody? This melody was a good melody. Why don't you play the melody, or try to just sort of, disassemble it, to something that is not even resembling the music anymore that was once meant to be played. But that's okay, that's fun, and we do that for fun and for learning purposes, but not in a serious manner, I suppose. But that's totally up to you. I'm just saying here the riffs out of the position. In music, we have in bluegrass music. I'd say in bluegrass music, but we use a lot of like major, with the major 7 here. Then we use a lot of Mixolydian it would be, but where we just have this F note in the G scale. Or we have minor, where we Aeolian. Where we just, but you can do the same with these single string licks. So if you have something small, see, that's a single string. All right, I know that was a lot of information. I just want to encourage you to sing along with these scales and practice the scales, of course. And some people say you should practice them in all keys, but I would start off, with G, C, and D. The keys you need most. And then once you are very familiar with the G, C, and D, you can move on, and go to A and B flat and F, and then go to E flat and all the others. But start off with something, that's not confusing for you, and also always sing along. Now, somebody would maybe ask also, is it important to know all the notes that I'm playing, And yes, at one point, maybe that's important, and it is. But if you are just a regular banjo player who wants to have fun, plays in the bluegrass band, I don't think so, necessarily. I know some people would jump on my neck and say, what are you saying? You need to know all this. But I've known, just like I said, I've known enough players, who really play great and made all their life a great living entertaining people with fantastic music. and they had no idea what they actually were playing. Not much. They just hear, but they were so good and so different because they would play more of what they hear, not of what just was possible. But anyway, that's for single string. Also, incorporating the middle finger is something that is important. Sometimes, because you just can't get around or be fast enough. When you look at classical guitar players, they play everything like that. That would be hard. You can try that. But I use it if I have fast passages. Yeah. Yeah, stuff like that where I incorporate the middle finger. Yeah, Uwe hears me do that a lot. So that's where I incorporate it. Sometimes, it just gets faster. Also, sometimes you can get stuck, you're down here and you need a high note. So I use the middle finger. Try to incorporate it. Don't worry about it right now. It will happen almost automatically, and you will have things that you can all of a sudden use the middle finger. You can also try just playing the same scales with thumb and middle instead of index. Sort of just to train it a little bit. Okay, I think we're done with this subject. I could take hours on each little segment, and but now I think that's been enough for that, and we move on to the next one. What do you think, David?
A couple quick questions. How
Yes.
important do you think it is practicing in the single string style, practicing arpeggios versus scales?
Yes, you can just arpeggios. Basically is a chord. So you play a chord and so. But I find I find chords in a roll actually much more. Arpeggios, I find them in a roll much more convenient than as a single string technique in most cases.
And what about if you're playing a passage that's a little more syncopated, and if you're just doing the 2-finger technique, if you then had to play like 2 thumbs in a row, like if it was like if you're playing if it had like an 8th note rest, and so the be another downbeat would be in time for the thumb. But
yeah, let's put it this way. If you have a bar, all the quarters are thumbs, right? And the remaining 8 notes are just the second, fourth, sixth, and 8th note is the index of the 8th notes. So, and then if I have a rest, I start again with the thumb, and if I have a rest, I start again with the index finger. But there's actually passages that I start on the one on the index finger, just because the lick works better.
Right.
That works for me. So it's not a hard rule. None of these rules are hard. They're not. You have to do it, but it's good to start with something out of the extraordinary. And sometimes, even double thumbing can have a lot of. So you can go. See, that would be like single string. That would be double thumbing. That's single string. So sometimes a double thumb can have a better solution because it just sounds. It has a different strength to it, a different sound to it. But there again, I don't want to make any rules. Really not. Yes, and that's a good question. Really, yes. And for the arpeggios, if I need to be more staccato with an arpeggio, for instance, sometimes I just go, just lift. Yeah, but I rarely ever use that. No.
Okay, thanks.
Is that good? Was that helpful? So
yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Want to move on to triplets?
Yes, we move on to triplets. We have a little bit of time left, and I just want to talk about right-hand triplets. And basically, what is a triplet? Well, we have instead of 8 notes, simply speaking, we have 8 notes. We have, for each quarter we have 3. So we have so we have 12 notes instead of and maybe you can practice that to get the feel of the triplet into a regular playing. So how I play them, I play a backward roll on one string. Some people like to play a forward roll, but I like to play a backward roll. So like that, yeah. So, right, so that's a triplet. Now, I already said that the backward roll is a roll I really like for this. It's a good technique. So if you have a passage, for instance, going, for instance, yeah, then you can do. Get the idea? So you can just incorporate this in your single string. Yeah. So instead of playing. Like that, so you can incorporate the triplet. Yeah. Then another way of incorporating triplets is on 2 strings. So if let's say as a start here, and I start with the middle. I start with the middle finger, and then. I start with the middle finger, but then the pattern changes. So the repeat is index finger on the first, the second string thumb, and the first finger is middle finger again. Sorry. So that emphasizes the triplet on the first string and takes the second string like a harmonic string. So you can do the same thing with the same roll, but you're using the thumb that goes on the second string, can go on the third string here, on the third string. So I have so index, thumb, middle, index. So start the whole thing with the index. Well, like I said in the very beginning, I usually start with the middle finger and then change the pattern. But you don't have to do that. And then second. So that was emphasized on first string. Now I can do the same thing and emphasize on the third, on either the second or the third string, where I go. So start with the thumb on the second string, and then play the first string, and then play the second string with the index, and then play the thumb again. So. And then I can do the same movements. But you see now the focus is on the second string. Or on the third. But you focus now on the melody on the third string, and the high note is the harmony note. Versus the other way around, where I play. Does that make sense? So I can do the middle, so I can focus on the inside of the banjo or the outside. So here's the inside. So here's one of my things I like to do a lot. So what you saw in this passage now, for instance, is a triplet passage that moves on the second string. G minor, and then I'll do the same thing in C minor. And now I shift to the first string focus, playing this C minor. So yeah. So I have an inside focus. Again, outside. So you can see they both come in really handy. Now, there's another way of doing just a quick triplet. I can just I just do a little backward triplet. And then, of course, you can also do that, turn it around. Isn't this fun? I love these little things. And then there's an inside triplet. That is a, so this is like this one. So I start with the thumb on the second string, take the F position, and then play the middle finger on the first, and then the index on the second and thumb on the third. So it sounds like this. And then this backward roll. So it starts. So if you have, for instance, or you can use this as the one, or this as the one. Yeah, or like I said before, this is the one. Or Daria is the one. And that gives you a rhythmic variation. You can do that with all the triplets. But that's a beautiful inside triplet, which now focuses on the second string. But I can do it as the one. See? And have it here. Yes. Oh yeah. That's a good way. Another one that I use is a 4-note triplet, where I play a forward roll and then shift with the thumb to the first string. That is very difficult at first time, maybe, but if you get a hang of it, it starts to be a lot of fun. See, and then you can even pull it back with the middle finger a little bit. So I can sometimes use that, yeah, like this. These are basically right-hand techniques that you can use. There's probably a lot more, but I think this is what I mainly use. That's enough for me, you know. And especially when you mix them up, they become more interesting. Otherwise, they just also become another pattern. You know? Well, that was a lot. What do you think, Dave?
That's very good. What about, real quickly, what about kind of combining the two? What if you're doing single string scales, but doing a triplet on a scale? Would you be doing the 2 fingers, or would you be doing 3 fingers like you?
It depends, you know. If I have something like, you know, that would be a triplet, like, you know, run. Yeah. Then sometimes I use 3, sometimes I use 2, but I not necessarily. I can do it sometimes, but I do it like. Then I use. Yeah, I use that. But not as a given again, you know. I like to feel the triplets also in 2 fingers, you know. There's a different feel to it, you know, in 2 fingers, and it gives me a good solid sort of feel in 2 fingers. Of course, there's people who, you know, religiously follow one thing. I have never done so, you know. It depends on what I want to play and what I want to hear, and don't make a hard rule. Really, I don't, you know. I used to be obsessed, 30 years ago, you know, of trying to come up with single string arrangements where I don't have to shift, you know, where I don't have to shift positions, till I realized I'm missing out, you know, on the challenge of shifting positions, because they are fun to shift. And they sometimes sound even good because you can do a little slide in shifting a position down, you know. See, if I had this part, see, I can do. See how beautiful it connects, because I'm doing the last. And for me, at one point when I started single string, I always was like, no, I can't do this because I will never be fast enough. But then I realized, no, I mean, violin players shift positions all the time. Cello players, bass players, they do all these shifts, and they do them very fast, and the bass is definitely faster to play. There was a guy in Switzerland. He was from, I think, Czech Republic. He was an amazing bass player. Vincent Kummer was his name. Played unbelievable, and he could play The Flight of the Bumblebee on double bass, and really, really fast. I mean, as fast as original, you know, the whole thing. You know, he would just grab any bass, action this high, right? And he played. And I was like, whoa, you know, and he wasn't even that stout of a person if you looked at him, you know. But it's just, you know, it's possible if you put your mind a little bit to it, and you don't have to play The Flight of the Bumblebee, of course, you know. I'm saying. And people are worried, about the action being too low. Look at a violin sometimes, how high the action is. I mean, I'm a little spoiled. My action is very low. But if you look at a violin, I used to, work with Dmitry Progorelov, from Russia. And his action was like huge, on the fourth string just to get all that tone. And then I see how fast he moves on this very huge action, with no frets, just moves up and down. And sometimes it's just a matter of getting used to a little bit, and not try to find a reason for the gear, not try to doubt your banjo first. That's the wrong approach, I guess. I've seen people, play on things that are almost impossible to play and play great stuff. But I'm saying you can build up just a little bit more strength and you don't even feel that anymore. So also shifts, like I said, I was obsessed with shifting, not shifting too much in the positions. Later, I started to realize, hey, they're a lot of fun. Actually, I can't wait for that challenge, Yeah.
And then one question I get a lot is, how do you practice changing between playing rolls and going and single string to make it nice and smooth, the transition, not make it kind of like one style and then chunk.
Yeah, I know. I tend, when I play bluegrass style, a lot of single string sometimes just doesn't sound that good, and it sounds very staccato because, you're playing back here, for bluegrass a little bit more. And then that's a little tick, 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 and can be a little annoying. And then what I usually do for single string, I just think single string sounds a little better if I move just up a little bit. So between rolling and then I have a single string lick, I tend to see myself looking for a little bit of a warmer, not so, it seems like the notes don't separate that much up here. So in a position where I would play a fiddle tune like Sandan's Reel, or where all of a sudden I would probably play the whole tune a little bit in a position where I'm rolling, wouldn't shift back and forth much. But when I play with Uwe, he maybe plays a bluesy kind of thing like Deep Ellum Blues, and I would, just play regular. You see, I'm trying to get to. So I'm moving. See, I'm moving closer, and I get a little different sound, and I move down. So I try to use the spectrum, of these different sounds. But for single string, I tend to move a little bit more towards the neck.
And then one more question, I see it in the chat. It's kind of on the topic of moving your right hand away from the bridge. Somebody was saying when they're playing triplets, they get a lot of noise with their middle finger on the first string. And he's tried playing away from the bridge, but is there any advice, maybe try to reduce that noise he's getting, pick noise with the first?
Yeah, pick noise actually is more dominant the further you go away from the bridge, because the string vibrates further out, and when the string is already vibrating further out and you have to stop it because you want to play it again, you have to stop it first. You see that? Yeah, but here the string is not vibrating out so far, it's just a lot less. So there's less to stop. But now I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Everybody always says, including me, try to strike the string with the flat surface of the fingerpick. That's why we're trying to move them, a little bit. But interesting, there's a counter idea to that I've always also taught, to some people. If you just have a slight bit of a side, you see, if you look at the pedal, and I stop the string with the side, you see that I have a lot less noise than with the flat side. See that? So, and I remembered when I was younger, I would play, once I hit the string, it's, I bent the string to my pick and it's pretty much flat, but still I would wear it just a slight bit more on the side than flat in the middle. And I realized that I actually have less pick noises if the pick is like almost hitting the string flat, but not completely flat. So maybe you want to try that. Also depends on the kind of finger picks you got, But see, that's a lot of noise. But it's also part of the banjo sound, to have a little bit of finger pick noise. It's just part of that metallic, clanging that is part of the sound.
Well, that's good. I do see one more question if we have time. It's from Joseph Bross. He's saying, is there anything else I can do to increase my finger reach and finger accuracy?
Oh, yeah. Finger accuracy has a lot to do with, again, I think don't worry about the reach so much, because, even if you overstretch a hand like that, you don't have to keep this finger still on there. So if you go like, and then move up and let this finger go, that's fine. You don't need to. It's like John Hickman. He had a very short reach on the fingers and he couldn't do this. So he would go. So he would constantly shift between these two positions because he couldn't reach that with the little finger. So don't buy any gadgets or things, to widen your hand. It's not gonna. It can hurt your hand. When I was a child, I once somewhere I read that you could take corks from wine bottles and put them in between your fingers and then sleep, and it would spread your hands so you could make bigger chords. I think 11 years old, and my mom came at night and she took the cork out because she thought going to hurt my hands. And I'm glad, she probably did that. But also accuracy has a lot to do with looking at where you want to go. The banjo neck is a long neck, and you can see, with people who can't, that came out wrong. You noticed with people that don't have eyesight, that they have trouble, on a banjo, to find the frets, because it's just such a long neck, to go from here to here is just a long distance. And if you can't see it, it's just hard to accomplish. That is people who can actually do it really well. But the art is to look slightly before you go somewhere, you look there already. So when I'm here, don't look your hand going up and try to find the spot. You have to be here, look here, and then you go up there. And you go like, and then you look already here. Now you look here. You already look here. And then you always hit it, and if you go like, and I want to go all the way up here, I have to look there. Because the hand will follow where you look. Pretty much. So if I go and then I want to go up here, I have to look there, and that really puts my hand there. That's why I don't play with glasses when I perform, because the glasses always give me a different perspective of what my natural look is, and bifocals are the worst because they actually mess up my brain completely, because then it looks different than what I'm stored. What is the relation between my hands and what I'm seeing. Now, I played so many concerts not seeing well, but I still can see all the inlays and everything. And so I play a lot more accurate without the glasses, even though I don't see that well, because I have this connection between my eyesight, which is undistorted. But as soon as I wear glasses, it's a little distorted. So That's all. But the basic idea of looking where you want to go with your finger is makes you much more accurate, really. If we have the advantage of having eyesight.
Well, thank you, Jens. This was great. This was a great lesson. We want to remind everybody that next week we'll be doing the Q&A for this lesson, and to send your questions in to us, or we'll have a chat in the.
Yeah, I want to tell you all this is there's so much to learn in music, um, and there's so much information out there, and of course I'm one of them, who fills you with lots of information, and I just always want to remind you on every one of these lessons that most people you see on the internet or myself, we have been playing for so long. A lot of things come so natural, and I know how it feels to not be able to do something, and you want to learn it. Don't be too hard on yourself, and foremost, never forget that you want to bring the music out that's in you, not just learn patterns, or because you get stuck with patterns and you get unhappy with just patterns. I mean, patterns are good, but your music will make you happy. The things you want to say will make you happy. I think that's for most people true. That's why we choose this kind of music, and not something else. So I hope that I was able to help you a little bit, with the positions and the scales and the practice. And don't forget to sing along. Thank you, David, for being so patient with me. I know I'm all over the place, but but I enjoy giving. I really enjoy giving these lessons.
These are fun. These are great to do, and I know everybody enjoys watching them as well, and they're helping a lot.
Well, next week we have question and answer on Tuesday evening, and we'll see you all then. All right, you all take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.